And we might also identify with certain titles or roles. And we may advertise ourselves as the knower, as the quick one, as the fast learner, as the one who kind of controls the room, even if we're not really willing to admit it out loud. We may advertise ourselves even with how we cross our legs and gaze at everybody around us without saying a word. We may advertise ourselves by having a furrowed brow and looking very quickly at different people and not really have so much awareness about these small gestures which add up all together, and our bodies start to hold these patterns over a period of time. And especially when we are thinking in our mind with titles, I don't mean title even like doctor, judge, healer, artist. I mean titles like woman, man, and we might be constantly trying to rigidly hold ourselves in a suit of this title and advertising ourselves in such a way that we show we're not that. Being a woman means you don't have to do anything. You just are who you are. And being a man means you don't have to do anything. You just are who you are. Same with being a daughter, a mother, a sister, a brother. We're expanding the spectrum of what it means to be human when we say we don't have to advertise our title unconsciously anymore. And these roles that we take in are automatically available. So in looking at how we advertise ourselves, I'm going to share a list of things I put together about myself at one point, just to kind of spur the thoughts about this and why it's worth it, to be honest. There were times where I advertised myself as being only kind and only well-meaning. I was in denial about my manipulations, tendencies, and also about my own vulnerabilities and my own lack of awareness. Capable of greatness, polite, advertising myself as very powerful, very able to sacrifice, deeply bonding, open to connect, a friend, a healer, a guide, a leader, a supporter, very honest and authentic and genuine and sincere. Advertising myself as constantly trying and striving and going and doing, and other times advertising myself as burdensome, overstepping, needy, lazy, greedy, clinging, pushy, cruel, disrespectful. Other times I advertise myself as having it all figured out. Other times I don't give a fuck, excuse my language, IDGAF. Other times that I'm born and dying, knowing and not knowing, kind of living in the paradox. And what happens is through these advertisements of ourselves, and many of them are unconscious, repetitive, automatic habits in our body, demeanor, gestures, and also in titles and roles. So it isn't personal. It's just that if we are advertising ourselves without awareness, we're going to have a very low level of actually getting our needs met, because we're advertising ourselves in order to receive attention, worth, value, belonging, welcoming, nurture, comfort, peace, joy, freedom, to be heard, to be, considered even. So if we're keeping all of this unconscious of who we're advertising to, but who is the one advertising, and if we're even open to learning about our own value, and in which case what skills we have, what talents, what abilities that we're cultivating, some traits we might have, this self-health work is inquiring about our true self and not necessarily all the ways we may have been advertising ourselves. So what results from not doing this work is called unconscious begging patterns. This is when one feels rejected very quickly and even threatened. Some of the threats that could come is to be belittled, to be exposed, disrespected, abused, betrayed, taken for a fool, exploited, used. Not knowing what we're supposed to do, not knowing how to exist in the world with others. And we can be very inappropriate in if we're so busy with our advertisements of how strong we are, how busy we are, and it's not actually matching the situation. It's not a dynamic, intuitive, present advertisement at that point. We may overcompensate with where we're actually very capable, but avoiding, and where we're very enduring, but avoiding where we may be like incapable, learning, weak. I wouldn't say weak, I would say a thinner part of us, not yet the developed part, and maybe where we have trouble tolerating something. So avoiding these areas, we're not actually doing a proper inventory where we're advertising ourselves. We've all got a lot of area of both the gifts and talents, but also the areas in which we may be quite impatient with others and a difficult friend for some people who we kind of take for granted. And we also may act like we're very gifted, very strong, instead of recognizing that we help everybody feel more secure when we don't always have to advertise ourselves as that way. And we can also advertise ourselves as sometimes feeling lack and sometimes feeling very low level of strength and drained. We may also take on other people's moods and states because they're left unaccounted for, and we may be looking for anything free. So somebody who's very anxious, we may be so desperate for company that we take on their anxiety. Somebody who is a very insecure person, we may cater to them and their ego the whole time we're with them, but we walk away feeling like we don't even exist. So these kind of emotions that people are feeling, like shame and guilt, and they're not going to necessarily advertise that. But if we're looking to be begging kind of for attention, for companionship, to avoid maybe aspects of ourselves, we may distract ourselves through others and let projections happen, let assumptions and expectations go. And these are states of being which are not being accounted for, which they're silent and they're unclaimed even. It's this idea of getting anything for free when we're unconsciously begging. And we start to focus a lot on the problems to solve if we're unconsciously begging, because we're not really feeling like the resource connection being restored. The one who made us as we are, the source of all healing, joy, patience, freedom, that we, and so on. Anything you might dream would make life feel, both right now good, that there's a sense of closure of everything that happened was okay, and that there's a sense of hope that things will continue to improve and excitement about what's to come, versus maybe not focusing on what brings us joy and closure and enjoyment and enrichment in the moment, but rather constantly trying to get the needs met and the resources and all the layers of lack that are being alchemized, instead of making peace with all states and finding a home in ourselves with whatever's going on. It ends up looking like obsessing and planning for and preparing for things to happen that may never occur, and yet so much energy is devoted there, and then we end up even more drained and unconsciously begging even more because of this tendency to focus on what's missing and planning on how to get it, or what was missing and planning how not to ever have it be missing again, no matter what, even if those techniques are unskillful or ineffective. And so this work really would be classified as not fearing impermanence. So this section today is really a pathway of releasing the fear, because the fear itself, and that maybe we won't have something last, or that it may never come again, prevents us from enjoying the natural flow of health and newness, which is constantly happening. Today's the day. Like, it's always going to be fresh and new, and our beliefs can disintegrate and new beliefs can come. And the same way our cells and even foreign materials that come into our body are engulfed and disintegrated, and then new materials become available, and then the body generates new information. And so it's like a constant letting go and arriving. And this is a way of kind of avoiding once the thing is taken away and we're not prepared, by living a lifestyle this way, and also not necessarily preparing for things that may never occur, abandonments and rejections and so on, instead being open and curious about what our value is and the value of the moment and the value of our life experience. And in order to reconcile the part of us that may be unconsciously begging and advertising ourselves a little too readily and a little too habitually, I wrote a letter to this version of myself, and it was easier to think of somebody else who I may have been disrespecting, devaluing, degrading, but it's really to myself. And I'm going to read it, and I want you to, if you can, close your eyes and recognize my voices on your behalf to the part of you that you have been not allowing to shine and be received by others and even by you because of a sense of unworthiness or even guilt about being here, about being who you are, and releasing that now and becoming one with that part of us that's always arriving. I'm broken-hearted over the conflict. I love you, my love. I don't want to let the fear win. Hurting you isn't winning. You are my love. I choose you. I don't want to reject or abandon you. You make my eyes sparkle. You're worth all the effort. You make my life better. I'm inspired to face my fears. You're my best friend. I don't know how to move forward, but I don't want anger to hide my pain. I don't want the pain to hide my fear. I choose to learn to be loving and peaceful together. And I wish this for all of you, a sense of closure on, as you release the unconscious begging patterns and attempts to advertise oneself inaccurately or inappropriately, a sense of unity, of joining hands with the version of you that doesn't need to do that, that is totally enough and able to handle every situation and has all the resources and skills necessary to live a life, a human life, regardless of all the judgments and expectations that we may have encountered prior to now. I wish you well. Have a beautiful day.